The massive crystal dome of the Galactic Council station floated in the darkness of space, its walls humming with the voices of 1,000 different alien species. Inside the Great Hall, representatives from across the galaxy gathered for their weekly meeting. Each species present had earned their place through one simple qualification. They had survived and conquered the most dangerous worlds in the universe. Commander Vexstar, of the Krex people, stood at his designated platform, his thick reptilian scales gleaming under the artificial light. His entire body was built for survival on worlds where rivers of lava flowed like water and the ground itself burned hot enough to melt metal. The Krex had not just survived on such worlds, they had built great cities there, turning hellish landscapes into thriving colonies. Across the chamber, High Counselor Mothra drifted in her containment field, her gaseous form shifting and swirling like living smoke. Her people, the Vorthok, existed as living clouds of gas that thrived in the poisonous atmospheres of dead worlds. They breathed chemicals that would instantly kill most other life forms and made their homes in the toxic clouds surrounding failed planets. Near the center of the hall, the crystalline form of Speaker Zilinth caught the light and threw rainbow patterns across the walls. The Zephyri had evolved in the frozen depths of space itself, building their civilization in the absolute zero cold of dead moons and asteroid fields. Their bodies were living crystal, immune to the crushing cold that would freeze solid any other known species. These three species, along with dozens of others, formed the Galactic Council of Surviving Worlds. They were the elite, the ultimate survivors who had proven their strength by conquering environments that would instantly destroy lesser beings. For thousands of years, they had competed with each other to claim the harshest, most dangerous worlds in the galaxy, turning uninhabitable death traps into symbols of their power. Commander Vexstar activated his speaking device, and his deep voice filled the chamber. Fellow survivors, our long-range scouts have discovered something interesting on the outer rim of the galaxy. The various alien forms shifted and moved, showing their interest. New worlds to conquer were always exciting. News for the Council, small blue planet, third from its star, Vexstar continued, reading from his datapad. Our initial scans show it contains intelligent life. Species calls itself human and appears to have developed basic technology. High Counselor Mothra's gaseous form rippled with what passed for laughter among her people. Ordinary. What sort of harsh conditions have these humans mastered? Vexstar checked his readings again, and his scaled face showed something like disappointment. That's just it, Council members. The conditions are ... mild, almost embarrassingly. So, the chamber filled with various sounds of confusion and amusement from the assembled aliens. Speaker Zilinth's crystalline voice chimed like breaking glass. Mild? Explain. The planet has a thin atmosphere composed mainly of nitrogen and oxygen. Vexstar read. Average temperatures range from -40 to +50 degrees. Most of the surface is covered with liquid water. Gravity is standard. There are no obvious environmental hazards. The silence that followed was broken by waves of dismissive sounds from across the chamber. The Krex delegation hissed with something. Approaching contempt, the Vorthok representatives swirled in their containment fields with obvious amusement. The Zephyri created a sound like wind chimes in a gentle breeze, their version of laughter. Garden World, Speaker Zilinth declared, her voice carrying across the chamber. These humans have never faced real hardship. They've never had to prove their strength against a truly hostile environment. What possible threat could such soft creatures pose? Asked one of the Krex junior officers. They've never had to survive in lava flows or toxic atmospheres. They've never had to build cities in the frozen vacuum of space. High Counselor Mothra, S-form pulsed with decision. This is perfect. We've been looking for an easy expansion target. These humans will serve as an excellent example to the rest of the galaxy about what happens when the Council decides to claim a new world. The various species began discussing the logistics of conquest. The Krex suggested sending a small force of their warriors, beings who could survive in conditions that would kill most other life forms. The Vorthok offered to provide their poison, gas specialists, creatures who could exist in any toxic environment. The Zephyri proposed sending their ice warriors, living crystals immune to the cold of space itself. "We won't need much," Commander Vextar said confidently. "A single ship with a dozen warriors should be more than sufficient. These humans have never faced anything like us." The council voted unanimously to proceed with the conquest.
After all,
What could possibly challenge them on such a gentle world? These humans had never had to prove themselves against the grinding forces of a hostile universe. They had never had to evolve deadly adaptations just to survive another day. They were soft, weak creatures who had lived their entire existence in perfect comfort. As the meeting ended and the various species began to disperse, none of them stopped to consider a simple question. If Earth's conditions were so mild and gentle, why had only one species managed to dominate the entire planet? The answer to that question would soon shake the very foundations of everything they thought they knew about survival. The Council warship Dominion's Edge cut through Earth's atmosphere like a blade through silk. Captain Vextar stood on the command deck, his massive reptilian form dwarfing the control panels around him. His thick scales, designed to withstand temperatures that could melt steel, gleamed under the ship's lights as he monitored their descent. "Environmental readings, Lieutenant," he ordered, his voice carrying the authority of someone who had conquered a dozen burning worlds. "Temperature holding steady at 22 degrees, sir," reported the young Krex officer. "Atmospheric pressure, normal, light winds. Oxygen content at 21%. Vextar shook his head in disgust. Pathetic. These humans live in conditions so mild they might as well be in a nursery. This will be over before it begins. Behind him, the ship's complement of 12 elite warriors prepared for what they assumed would be the easiest conquest in galactic history. These were beings who had survived in the heart of active volcanoes, who had built cities in the cores of dying stars, who had made homes in the poisonous clouds of gas giants. A few soft creatures from a garden world would pose no challenge at all. The ship landed in what their sensors indicated was a populated area. Through the viewing ports, Vextar could see a settlement of primitive buildings scattered across green landscapes. Everything looked impossibly peaceful and gentle. There were no defensive barriers, no environmental suits, no signs that these humans had ever faced real danger. "Prepare for immediate contact," Vextar ordered. "Full intimidation protocols. These creatures need to understand what they're dealing with." The landing ramp descended with a hiss of hydraulics. Vextar stepped onto the surface of Earth, his massive form casting long shadows across the ground. His environmental suit registered the mild conditions with something approaching embarrassment. The gravity was so light he felt like he might float away. The atmosphere was so thin he could barely believe it could support life. Within minutes, a small group of humans approached the ship. Vextar activated his universal translator and prepared to deliver the standard conquest declaration.
peace.
Humans looked even more fragile than he had expected. They wore only thin layers of fabric, their skin exposed directly to the open atmosphere. Their bodies were small and soft, with no visible armor or protective adaptations. "I am Captain Vextar of the Galactic Council," he announced, his voice booming across the landscape. "We claim this world for the coalition of surviving species. You have 1 standard hour to begin evacuation procedures." The lead human, a small female wearing a white coat, stepped forward. Her name badge read Dr. Hannah Kim in simple lettering. She looked up at Vextar's towering form without any sign of fear or intimidation. "I'm sorry, but we can't do that," she said calmly. "This is our home." Vextar's thermal vision sensors began registering something that made no sense. The human's body temperature was maintaining itself in what should have been impossible conditions. Her exposed skin was somehow processing the corrosive oxygen. Atmosphere without any protection. The gravity that should have been crushing her seemed to have no effect at all. "You do not understand the situation," Vextar said, his voice rising with frustration. "We are the Council of Surviving Worlds. We have conquered planets where the very air burns with acid. We've built cities in the hearts of dying stars. We have survived in conditions that would instantly destroy any lesser species."
Dr. Kim
smiled, and something in that expression made Vextar's blood run cold. "You think our conditions here are easy? Of course they are," Vextar replied, gesturing at the peaceful landscape around them. "Your world is a paradise. Mild temperatures, breathable atmosphere, comfortable gravity. You've never faced real hardship. The human woman's smile widened. Captain, you're breathing oxygen right now through your environmental suit, you know? What oxygen does to most organic compounds. It's a corrosive gas, Vexstar admitted, suddenly feeling uncertain. That's right. It causes rapid cellular breakdown. It's so dangerous that when it first appeared in our atmosphere, it killed almost everything on the planet. We call it the Great Oxidation Event. Most life on Earth died. Vexstar's sensors began screaming warnings as he processed this information. Around him, he could see other humans going about their daily activities. A young male jogged past the landing site, wearing shorts and a thin shirt, breathing the deadly oxygen atmosphere directly into his lungs. An elderly female tended to plants in her garden, her hands touching the soil without any protective equipment. But you're surviving in it, Vexter stammered. We're not just surviving, Dr. Kim replied. We're thriving. Our bodies have evolved to use oxygen as fuel. We've learned to live with gravity that would crush most species. We've adapted to temperature swings that would kill most life forms. We've survived ice ages, asteroid impacts, volcanic eruptions, and atmospheric changes that would sterilize most worlds. As if to emphasize her point, a group of human children ran past, laughing and playing in the open air. Their small bodies were processing the corrosive atmosphere, withstanding the crushing gravity, and maintaining their body temperature in conditions that should have been fatal. This is impossible, Vexter whispered, his voice shaking. Dr. Kim's smile never wavered. Captain, what you call impossible conditions we call Tuesday afternoon. Perhaps you should reconsider your definition of a garden world. The emergency session of the Galactic Council convened only 3 days after Captain Vextar's hasty retreat from Earth. The great crystal dome buzzed with nervous energy as representatives from across the galaxy gathered to hear the impossible report. Captain Vextar stood at the center of the chamber, his usually proud bearing now hunched with confusion and something that looked disturbingly like fear. High Counselor. Mothra's gaseous form swirled impatiently in her containment field. Captain, your report makes no sense. You claim these humans refused to surrender their world? That's correct, Counselor, Vextar replied, his voice lacking its usual confidence. But that's not the most disturbing part of what we discovered. Speaker. Zillanth's crystalline form chimed with irritation. 8. Then get to the point. What could possibly concern the Council about a few primitive creatures from a garden world? Vextar activated his data display, showing readings that made the assembled aliens shift uncomfortably. The humans aren't just surviving on their world. They're thriving in conditions that would kill most of our species. Their bodies have adapted to process oxygen as a life-sustaining gas. Oxygen, counselors? The same corrosive substance that causes rapid cellular breakdown in almost all known life forms. The chamber fell silent. Every species present knew the dangers of oxygen exposure. It was used as a weapon in some of the galaxy's most brutal conflicts. They breathe it directly into their bodies, Vextar continued. No protective equipment. No environmental suits. They've somehow evolved to use it as fuel for their biological processes. A junior officer from the Krex delegation approached the podium. Sir, we've received additional reports from our deep space monitoring stations. The humans aren't staying on their world. What do you mean? High Counselor Mothra demanded. We've detected human vessels in the Corridon Belt, Counselor, the chamber. Erupted in shocked sounds from dozens of different species. The Corridon Belt was legendary throughout the galaxy as the graveyard of civilizations. It was a region so saturated with deadly radiation and toxic gases that even the Council's most advanced ships could only survive there for a few hours before their crews died horrible deaths. That's impossible, Speaker Zillanth declared. No. Organic life can survive in the Corridon Belt. We've sent expeditions there. They all died within hours. The junior officer continued reading from his report. The humans have established a mining operation there, Counselor. They're extracting rare minerals and apparently enjoying themselves. Our long-range sensors picked up what their transmissions describe as recreational activities. Captain Vextar pulled up more data on his display. It gets worse. We've now confirmed human settlements on 14 worlds that we classified as uninhabitable, not just outposts or research stations. Full colonies with families, children, and permanent structures. The list appeared on the main display, and gasps of disbelief echoed through the chamber. Sulfur Prime, where the atmosphere could dissolve metal within minutes. The frozen wastes of Kepler 4 to B, where temperatures never rose above -200 degrees. The gravity wells of Titan 7, where the crushing force was strong enough to flatten most spacecraft. They're not just surviving their Vexstar, continued, they're building cities. They have something they call extreme sports that involve activities we can barely comprehend. A communication officer rushed into the chamber with a fresh report. Counselors were receiving a transmission from the human settlement on Radiation Beach. Radiation Beach? High Counselor Mothra? S form pulsed with shock. That's where we send our worst criminals to die. The humans have turned it into a vacation resort, the officer reported. They're advertising something called Surf and Sun activities. They appear to be using the deadly radiation as a form of entertainment. Speaker Zillanth's crystalline voice cracked with disbelief. This is madness. No species could evolve to find such conditions enjoyable. Another report came in from the communication station. We're getting updates from across the galaxy. A human named Jiho has established a trading post on Sulfur Prime. He's offering to sell protective equipment to other species who want to visit. A human called Minji has opened a restaurant on the ice world of Proximacy. She's serving what she calls hot soup to travelers. A restaurant, Captain Vexter repeated weakly. On the ice world. The Zephyr expedition that we sent there last year froze to death within minutes. Speaker Zillanth reminded the chamber. How is a human serving hot food there? The reports kept coming in, each one more impossible than the last. Humans were appearing throughout the galaxy's most dangerous regions, not as conquerors or desperate refugees, but as settlers, traders, and tourists. They were treating the Council's most feared environments as if they were pleasant neighborhoods. There's something else, Captain Vexter said, his voice now barely above a whisper. We intercepted some of their personal communications. They're not impressed by these conditions. They keep comparing them to something they call camping, and expressing disappointment that the environments aren't more challenging. High Counselor Mothra's gaseous form went completely still. They find our worst nightmare worlds boring. One human described the cordon belt as relaxing, Vexstar confirmed. Another said the gravity wells reminded her of home. The chamber fell into stunned silence as the implications sank in. These weren't just hardy survivors. These were beings who had evolved in conditions so harsh that the galaxy's most dangerous environments seemed mild by comparison. What manner of world, Speaker Zillanth asked in a voice like breaking glass, produces creatures like this? The answer would haunt the Council for generations to come. 2 standard galactic years had passed since the Council's first encounter with humanity, and the situation had grown far worse than anyone could have imagined. The great crystal dome of the Council station no longer hummed with confidence and pride. Instead, it buzzed with nervous energy and barely contained panic as emergency meetings became a daily occurrence. Chief Intelligence Officer Crixtal stood before the assembled representatives, his usually calm demeanor cracking under the weight of the reports he carried. His scales, once polished to show his strength, now appeared dull and worn from stress. The humans are everywhere, he announced, his voice echoing through the chamber. They've established permanent colonies on 27 worlds that we classified as uninhabitable, not temporary outposts or research stations. Full cities with schools, hospitals, what they call shopping centers. High Counselor Mothra's gaseous form pulsed with agitation. This is impossible. We've spent thousands of years proving that these worlds cannot support life.
How can
These garden world creatures be outdoing us? It gets worse, Crixto continued, activating his data display. They're not just surviving on these worlds, they're thriving. Our economic analysts report that human settlements are now outproducing our own colonies on similar worlds by factors of 10 to 1. The chamber filled with sounds of disbelief from dozens of different species. Speaker Zillinth's crystalline form caught the light as she shifted uncomfortably. How is this possible? Our people have evolved specifically for these environments over millions of years. That's exactly the problem, came a new voice from the chamber's entrance. The assembled aliens turned to see a small human figure walking. Down the central aisle, Dr. Yura, Earth's newly appointed ambassador to the Council, had been invited to speak under a flag of truce. Her small form seemed impossibly fragile. As she approached the speaker's platform, she wore only a simple outfit of thin fabric, her skin exposed directly to the station's atmosphere. Most of the council members had to use environmental suits just to survive in the same space. Honored council members, Dr. Yura began, her voice carrying clearly through the chamber's translation systems. You've been thinking about survival all wrong. Captain Vexstar, who had been quietly observing from his platform, leaned forward. Explain. You see harsh worlds as challenges to overcome through specific adaptations? Dr. Yura said, gesturing to the various alien forms around her. The Krex evolved to survive in extreme heat. The Zephyri adapted to survive in extreme cold. The Vorthok learned to exist in toxic atmospheres. Each of you became perfect for one specific type of environment. She activated her own data display, showing images of Earth throughout its history. Humans evolved differently. We didn't adapt to one environment. We adapted to constant change. Our planet has been trying to kill us for millions of years, and it keeps changing how it does it. The images showed Earth's violent history, massive volcanic eruptions, asteroid impacts, ice ages that froze entire continents, and atmospheric changes that wiped out most life forms. Through it all, small human ancestors somehow survived. Every few thousand years, our world throws something new at us, Dr. Yura continued. Ice ages, volcanic winters, floods, droughts, earthquakes, hurricanes. We've survived 5 major extinction events that killed most other life on our planet. We didn't evolve to be perfect for one environment. We evolved to be adaptable to any environment. Chief Intelligence Officer Crystal studied the data with growing horror. You're saying your entire species evolved under constant threat of extinction. Not just extinction, Dr. Yura replied calmly. Total planetary sterilization. Multiple times. What you call mild conditions on Earth have already killed 99% of all species that ever lived there, not the original inhabitants. Of our world, we're the survivors. The chamber fell silent as the implications sank in. These weren't creatures from a peaceful garden world. They were the products of a planetary death trap that had been testing them for millions of years. But the environmental readings, Speaker Zillinth protested, your world seems so gentle. Dr. Yura smiled, the same expression that had once unsettled. Captain Vexstar, gentle. Our planet has weather systems that can level entire cities. We have zones where the ground itself moves and shifts without warning. We have seasons where temperatures swing by over 100 degrees. We have storms that can destroy anything in their path. She pulled up more data showing Earth's current conditions. What you measured as mild is actually a brief, peaceful period between catastrophes. Our scientists estimate we're overdue for the next major extinction event. It could be a supervolcanic eruption, an asteroid impact, or a solar flare that strips away our atmosphere. And you're not afraid? High Counselor Mothra asked, her gaseous form rippling with confusion. Of course we're afraid, Dr. Yura replied. Fear keeps us alive, but we're also prepared. Every human child learns to survive in conditions that would kill most galactic species. We call it camping. We do it for fun. The reports that had been flooding in suddenly made sense. Humans weren't conquering harsh worlds through superior technology or evolution. They were simply applying survival skills they had learned as children on a world that made the galaxy's most dangerous environments seem like vacation spots. Your uninhabitable worlds, Dr. Yura concluded, are actually more comfortable than the conditions we face at home. You've been trying to threaten us with places that are safer than our own backyard. The council sat in stunned silence, finally understanding the truth. They hadn't encountered a species from a garden world. They had met the survivors of a planetary apocalypse that never ended. The stellar cascade began without warning, spreading across the galaxy like a deadly infection. Star after star began to collapse, sending waves of lethal radiation and gravitational distortions that turned entire solar systems into death zones. The phenomenon moved faster than any council ship could travel, leaving destruction in its wake that made even the harshest worlds look like peaceful gardens. On the council station, emergency alarms blared constantly as reports flooded in from across the galaxy. High Counselor Mothra materialized in the Great Chamber, her gaseous form flickering with panic as she tried to maintain her composure. "The cascade has reached the Krex core worlds," she announced to the assembled representatives. "We're losing entire star systems. Our most advanced colonies are being evacuated, but our ships can't get close enough to the affected zones." "Captain." Vexstar stood at his platform, his proud bearing now bent with desperation. "The radiation levels are beyond anything we've ever encountered. Our best environmental suits fail within minutes. We've lost contact with 17 colonies in the past day alone." Speaker Zillinth's crystalline form was cracked and dim, showing the stress of the situation. "The Zephyr home system is experiencing gravitational shifts that are tearing our crystal cities apart. We have nowhere to evacuate our people. Every world we've claimed is either already destroyed or too dangerous to approach." The chamber filled with the desperate sounds of a dozen different species facing extinction. These were beings who had conquered the galaxy's harshest environments, who had built their entire civilization on their ability to survive in impossible conditions. Now, they were helpless against a force that made their worst nightmares seem trivial. "We need to consider the unthinkable," High Counselor Mothra said, her voice barely steady. "We need to ask for help." The silence that followed was deafening. For thousands of years, the Council had been the galaxy's ultimate survivors. They had never needed help from anyone, especially not from creatures they had once dismissed as primitive. "The humans?" Captain Vexstar said quietly. "They're the only species that might be able to help us." Within hours, a message was sent to Earth's government. The response came back faster than anyone expected, transmitted directly from Admiral Jiho of the Earth Defense Fleet. His words were simple, but carried across the galaxy to every council world. "We'll help. That's what we do." The rescue operations began immediately. Human ships, built to withstand the crushing forces of Earth's gravity and the corrosive effects of its atmosphere, dove into the stellar cascade zones that council vessels couldn't even approach. Where council ships failed in minutes, human vessels operated for hours, their crews working in conditions that should have killed them instantly. Dr. Rura stood on the observation deck of the human rescue ship Resilience, watching the operation unfold. Beside her, Captain Vexstar observed in stunned silence as human crews performed miracle after miracle. They were rescuing beings from worlds that were literally falling apart, extracting survivors from radiation zones that would have sterilized any other species. "I still don't understand," Vexstar said, watching a human shuttle emerge from a collapsing star system with a cargo hold full of Zephyr refugees. "Why are you helping us?" "We came to conquer your world. We threatened your people."
Doctor.
Yura smiled, but this time the expression was warm rather than unsettling. "Because that's what humans do, Captain. We survive, we adapt, and we help others do the same. It's not about conquest or proving who's strongest. It's about making sure everyone gets through another day." The rescue operations continued for months. Human colonies, established on worlds that the Council had considered uninhabitable, became refugee centers for billions of displaced beings. The Krex, who had once lived in the hearts of burning worlds, found themselves grateful for shelter on human colonies built in asteroid fields. The Vorthok, who had existed in poisonous gas clouds, discovered that human settlements in toxic nebulae were actually quite comfortable. The Zephyr, crystalline beings who had thrived in the frozen depths of space, were amazed to find that humans had built cities and ice fields that were actually warmer than their original homes. What the Council had seen as uninhabitable death traps, humans had turned into thriving communities with schools, hospitals, and recreational facilities. As the stellar cascade finally burned itself out, the galaxy began to reorganize around a new reality. The Council's most dangerous worlds had become humanity's preferred real estate. The galaxy's most feared environmental hazards had become humanity's vacation destinations. Trade routes that had been considered impossible were now humanity's main shipping lanes. The final session of the Old Galactic Council was held in a human-built station orbiting a world that had once been considered uninhabitable. High Counselor Mothra, her gaseous form now stabilized by human atmospheric processors, made the announcement that would echo through galactic history. By a unanimous vote, the Galactic Council officially recognizes humanity as the galaxy's premier specialists in extreme environment survival and colonization. All worlds previously classified as uninhabitable are hereby designated as human-suitable until proven otherwise. Captain Vexstar, now serving as the first non-human ambassador to the new human colonial authority, added his own observation. We spent thousands of years proving we could survive the galaxy's harshest worlds. The humans spent millions of years making harsh worlds livable. There's a difference. The galaxy had learned a valuable lesson. When the impossible becomes routine, when survival becomes an art form, when helping others becomes as natural as breathing, you call the humans. They'll probably already be there, building communities and wondering what took everyone else so long to arrive.